Hello YouTube! Today we're going to be talking about the culture of self-improvement, especially the rise of what I call alpha male routines. If you spend any amount of time on YouTube, you have run into this type of video. They're usually podcasts or seminar run by a guy who is telling you that if you follow X or Y routine, you are going to become a better man, you are going to become more anabolic, more alpha. And all of that is nice and all, but most of the time there's also a product affiliated with the advice. And this is where a culture that is supposedly positive of improving the self turns into a very toxic one. So I wanted to spend some time with you guys discussing this because I know for a fact that you are most likely interested in improving yourself, and I want to make sure you don't end up trapped by someone who is using that spirit of improvement to take advantage of you. So, there's many figures in the self-improvement community. The ones I put in the thumbnail are the most common ones and the ones that are the most popular. It doesn't mean that these guys are the bad guys. I'm not saying that Rogan or Jocko Willink, I'm not saying that these guys are bad. I'm just saying that overall, they represent what I want to tackle today. So let's first look at what gets you into self-improvement. You want to improve, but towards what? Well, usually you want to improve towards being a more anabolic and alpha male, which on a surface level pretty much means that you want to have bigger muscles, you want to be more attractive, you want to have a higher social status, you want more money, you want to be popular with the girls, etc., etc. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also an aspect of it that is more psychological, where some men who lack confidence want to learn hacks or tips that are going to help them be more secure. That is also great. You have people who want to be smarter or more able to use their cognitive abilities, so they want to develop their brain acuity, and that is also part of self-improvement. And then you also have lifestyle habits to develop so as to have more energy throughout the day. So all of these things fall under the umbrella of what I call self-improvement. And you quickly notice that usually to access these things that you desire so much, there are certain pathways that oftentimes rely on neurological tricks that are supposedly able to hack your brain and rewire your mindset, usually through simple daily modifications to your routine. Which sounds too good to be true, right? You are down on yourself and you don't like your life, and someone tells you that 5 minutes a day is all you need to change your life and to become an alpha. Many people doubt that. Many men who are down on their luck doubt that. And that is the reason why this culture of self-improvement is despised by a large portion of the male population, which is strange because you would think that we would all want to improve. But some people really don't like this pull yourself by the bootstrap culture that is truly predominant within these spheres. You listen to Joe Rogan, you listen to someone again like Jocko Willink. It's all about the will. It's all about the discipline and your ability to get shit done. Many people see that and say, okay, well, that's very nice and all, but you only talk about the individual and the self. What about the environment? What about my conditions? What about what is surrounding me and that is most likely preventing me from doing and actually achieving all of the things that you say I can achieve if I follow your methods? These, in my opinion, have entered a pretty depressing cycle of self-doubt where they have come to believe that they cannot even improve themselves. And once you have gotten to that point in your life, you are truly fucked. Because you have started to doubt the only person that can make a change in your life, and that is you. And most of the time, these people like to project that doubt on the figures that push and promote self-improvement, but deep down, what they truly fear is not able to achieve these things that they want so badly is themselves. That to me is not a receivable critique, but there is some truth in what they say, meaning that even though self-improvement as a concept is very valuable and not something that you should doubt because it's very dangerous for you, the means and the ways that this very self-improvement is being carried throughout the spheres and the platform, that is what must be questioned. Because if self-improvement is great, not every single mean and media that promotes self-improvement is. And that is both true for the people that promote it, but also for the methods that they use. Example, I think that motivational speeches are crap for the most part. And yet these are extremely popular. They get millions of views. Why? Well, I think it's because they make you feel good in the instant. When you listen to someone who is trying to hype you up and fire you up, you feel like you can accomplish anything in the instant. But this is not conducive to making differences in the long term. And this is where we distinguish between bullshit self-improvement and tangible self-improvement. To me, self-improvement, true self-improvement is done bit by bit. It's not a big fire, it's small habits. And anyone who tells you that, again, these small habits cannot make a difference and you cannot change your life in 5 minutes is wrong. Because the decision to change your life takes you less than a second. And yet, this is the most important second of your life. So any amount of time you can spend working on the self, even if minuscule, is absolutely needed and necessary. Anyone who starts to believe that it takes weeks of single-minded focus on one task in particular to get better and to improve is wrong. And on top of that, they have started to believe that they are forced to take a gigantic step to begin their journey, which also means that they are very unlikely to start their journey. Start every journey the way you would start any type of journey, with a single step. With each step comes the decision to take another. That is how self-improvement is made. So this also helps you distinguish between the people who sell you bullshit, the people who sell you black pills, and the ones in the middle that sell you self-improvement. If they tell you that nothing is possible, ignore. And if they tell you that magical things and mystical things and achievements can achieve like this, also dismiss this. They are actually lying to you. They are trying to excite you, and it's the same with motivational speeches, who, as I said, are popular because they make you feel good in the moment, but they never actually lead to sustained changes because they don't really push you towards action. Actually, I would argue quite the opposite. They push you towards passivity because you end up satisfied after having listened to someone else tell you how much you can achieve. In a sense, it's the equivalent of being very hungry for a steak and someone tells you how good the steak is going to be, and before you know it, your hunger has been satisfied. This is very dangerous because it's a proxy. It's a replacement for something that was beneficial, but now is not at all. And I've also found that this heightened state of emotion that comes with a motivational speech is the enemy of consistency because, again, your journey is not going to be like this. It's not going to be en dents de scie, as we say in French. A journey is first and foremost about consistency. And therefore, if you can only get yourself to act when you are hyped up to the max, you understand that this is not a state that is going to be very recurrent. Example, you have one motivational speech that you love, and it gets you fired up. After having listened to it 15 times, it's not going to have any effect on you. And at this point, the stimulus it provided to get you to get the work done is now disappeared. It's now not present anymore. And what happens next? Well, your consistency is shot. And you could tell me, well, I can move on to the next motivational speech. Yeah, but how sustainable is that? And also, how relevant is it to building discipline within the self? From what I see, you rely on an external factor to get the work done, and that is not good. I'm not saying that this fire of motivation is a bad thing, but you should use that fire to turn it into something much more sustainable. And again, that sustainability comes from discipline. Discipline, which, by the way, is the stasis of emotion. Because discipline is not an emotion. Motivation is an emotion. There's a spike. With discipline, you're flatlined. Why? Because you do not need fluctuations in your emotional state to get the shit done with discipline. As I've said in the past, motivation is a fire that burns. Discipline is a cold fire. It never dies. It is always on. It is never extinguished. And this is why it is so superior to motivation. Do you think that someone like me who's been training for 10 years, 15 years is motivated? Sometimes, but most of the time I'm not. I just get shit done because it is what it is, and it is my discipline that is pushing me forward. That way you don't need a discipline, you don't need a stimulus, and because you don't need a stimulus, it never actually wears out. And the action that followed this stimulus provided by motivation also continues indefinitely because the stimulus can never vanish. And by the way, connection and tangent, it is also what makes stimulants so dangerous. They provide the same spike in energy, but when the spike is gone because you have gotten used to the product or because you ran out of the product, the action that followed, aka training, is also gone. If you are interested in understanding why caffeine, for example, is not necessarily the best thing for you in your self-improvement journey, check the description. I've made a long video about that. So now that this is out of the way, let us focus on what actually matters when it comes to self-improvement, aka these small daily changes. Small daily changes that are the exact opposite of what I just described. They're small, there's no fluctuation, and they build up day after day, year after year. This is the consistency that is needed. And this is how, by the way, you build greatness. Greatness is built on a foundation of tiny habits that together make a temple. Who do you think is going to build the bigger and more beautiful temple? The guy that works once a week at it and is super hyped and he spends 6 hours stacking rocks on one another and then he does nothing for a week? Or the guy that goes in every single day, puts in one rock at a time, and then does that every single day of the year, year after year after year? I think that the second guy not only is going to get the work done faster, but on top of that, the tempo at the end is going to be much more beautiful. So that is the mindset to espouse, in my opinion, with anything related to self-improvement. Again, remember that quote by Aristotle, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit." And this touches in the direction of self-sustained self-improvement. You see, to me, these daily actions that you are going to have to put in effort at first to get done will eventually turn into habits. And this is what I describe with discipline. Discipline at first is a mindful effort. You have to force yourself to be disciplined. But before you know it, it becomes ingrained in you. And the action of discipline then becomes a habit. And this is how you reach excellence, because now you're not thinking to yourself, okay, I have to train today, which would mean also that you sort of ask the self if you want to train. No, training becomes a part of you. And once it becomes a part of you, it is not questioned anymore. And therefore, the chances of you skipping is non-existent. It is like breathing. If you can reach that state, you can accomplish great things. And this is how you profoundly change your life. You have to modify the way you live it. Right? You can't just modify your life as if it was something external to you. You are the person living your life. So how do you live your life? Right? It's a great sentence that old-timers like to use. How do you live? How are you living? There's wisdom in that sentence. Because the way you live your life dictates the way your life is. I know it's simple, it's simplistic even, but keep in mind that the best self-improvement methods are always simplistic. If it sounds complicated, it most likely is not going to actually amount to anything. And how do you change the way you live your life? Well, you change the behavioral mechanisms that guide you through the day. And what are these mechanisms? Your habits. You who is trying to improve your life most likely have a long list of bad habits. How did you ingrain these? Were you born with these bad habits? No, you built them through action. Let's take one for example. You go to bed too late and you don't get enough sleep. What happened for that to become a habit? Well, one day you went to bed late, then the next day you repeated that, and then the next day and the next day. And before you knew it, it became a pattern in your life. Negative patterns are going to ingrain themselves in your life if you don't pay attention, because for the most part, they tend to rely on pleasure or laziness. So they happen to you despite you knowing better, despite you knowing that these are bad things. On the opposite hand, positive habits take effort because usually they require work and they are painful in the sense that you have to force yourself to get them done. But if you never do that and you just go with the flow, you are going to amount to absolutely nothing. You have to fight against your own behavioral mechanisms, and you have to be the one who say, okay, I own this machine and I'm going to put in place the mechanisms that I think are going to be best beneficial for me going forward. So as I said, it could be going to bed late, but it could also be eating junk food. It is your choice to eat junk food. And the issue with junk food is that the more you eat it, the more you reinforce the consumption, the more addicted you are, and the tougher it is to break that cycle. So you have to get it done as soon as possible. And all of that, since we are talking about training for this video, and this is in reality what it amounts to in my opinion, right? Self-improvement is going to push you towards bettering the body, which in return is going to better the spirit. All of that is also for the intended purpose of keeping you full of energy throughout the day. Many people skip the gym and they fail to pinpoint the reason why. The reason why is because all of their daily habits saps their energy, and therefore when it comes time to actually train, they are completely devoid of that. So if you want to have something to look forward to, or even in a sense an angle to attack self-improvement, make it so that every single aspect of your life is conducive to your ability to train. And I guarantee you that this is not only going to make you a better lifter, it's also going to make you a better man. Because for the most part, preserving your ability to be physically active is also going to preserve your spirit. It's going to preserve your ability to be useful. And for a man, there is no greater privilege and joy than being useful, at least in my opinion. So always make sure that everything you do in your life always aligns with your ability to go to the gym and get the work done. And that way, you are going to find yourself improving with quote-unquote minimal efforts, because the mechanisms are going to connect with one another. It's the same way with bad habits. Usually one bad habit leads to another. You go to bed late, you wake up late, what do? You eat junk food. Why? Because you have ingrained in you that when you wake up groggy, you want something fatty or junk foody to make yourself feel better. So in a sense, these bad habits cooperate with one another and they reinforce one another. But this is also true for good habits. You woke up early and now you are full of energy. Your first meal is going to be a healthy breakfast. Why? Because you are on a positive run. And these habits are going to continuously link into one another, at least if you make the conscious effort to do so. So this is, in my opinion, what must be done when it comes to self-improvement. You create a framework in which motivation is not needed anymore. And as I said, we call this discipline. I know that people, especially people who like philosophy like me, are going to have a tendency to glorify discipline and explain to you how beautiful it is and even romanticize it a bit. And I think that's the reason why so many people hate self-improvement, by the way, is because they don't like this approach to discipline because it makes it look like it's unachievable for them. They almost start to feel like it's a trait that was given at birth. But that's not the case. Anyone can become disciplined. As I said, it's very simple. You build up habits throughout the days that eventually amount to you not having to force yourself to get shit done. That's discipline. Discipline, as I said, is not an emotion. It is simply a state of things. Because discipline is built via action. It is as simple as that. And as such, we always favor protocols that have us be the actor of our life, which amounts to habits. When you have a habit, if it's a conscious and healthy habit, you are the one who decided that. But if it's a negative habit, you are the victim of the habit and you are passive in its face. How many of you do things and the second you do it, you regret it? You jerk off, you eat junk food, you skip the gym. Does it feel good? Maybe there's that guilty pleasure, but afterwards you feel like shit. Why? Because you're passive. You are suffering from your own habits. You must never let yourself become a victim of your own life mechanisms. Instead, always be the actor. This is why also I tell you to avoid motivational speeches as a means to replace action. When you watch a motivational speech, you watch another man be motivated, be full of energy, and you just sit there and you're passively absorbing that, and it makes you feel better. I make motivational videos, but I really hope that you guys watch them and then you get shit done. If you just watch them to feel better about yourself and to, in a sense, live by proxy, then you are better off not watching my videos at all. And this finally connects to the theme of self-improvement media, because you could tell me, okay, you've just been preaching self-improvement for the past 10 or 15 minutes. What the fuck is that title then? How are these things bad? Well, they're bad because, as I've said, I've just described the proper way to get it done. But now we're going to start talking about self-improvement as a media on this platform and what it has become, because to me, it has become toxic. Regardless of what you consume, in terms of self-improvement, if you never actually apply any of the strategies you hear about, it is actually counterproductive. And this is a detail, and you could tell me that it's obvious, but again, look at the popularity of self-improvement, then look at the average male. Are you telling me that these videos are having an effect? Or is it instead that all of these people flock towards these videos because they make it makes them feel better, but they never actually do anything to use the information in these videos to do something productive. Well, if they don't do anything, then the consumption of the video becomes actively counterproductive, because the act of telling yourself that you will do these things or listening to others list the benefits they are experiencing from said things is always more immediately satisfying than having to patiently apply these skills to change. This is the psychological mechanism behind this. When you are listening to another man talk about his achievements and all the things he's done, like he wakes up at 4, he trains for 2 hours, he drinks cold water, he goes for a run, he kills a deer, he eats the deer, what does it do? Well, you feel like you're living this, and you feel like you've achieved this. Yes, it sounds childish, but sadly, this is how it works. And if you want a proof, look at the popularity of resolutions, of all of these people who come January 1st, make a long-ass list of, I will do this and I will do that. 99% of them give up on that list within a month. Why? Because they got satisfaction from the list. And not just from the list, from telling people about the list. These people spent more effort and time telling others, oh, I will do this, I will do that, I will become this. They never actually did anything. Why? Because it felt good enough to just say these things. And this is really touched upon by self-improvement gurus because they want the watch time and they want the clicks. They are really not that invested in your success. I mean, that's something that I hope you have understood by now. It also goes for me in a sense because I don't really know you. I'm throwing things out there hoping that people are going to catch them, but whether you get it done or not doesn't really matter to me. Then you add money into the mix, someone who sells you a method or who has you listen to their podcast and their publicities doesn't really care if you apply what they say, which also connects to the idea that maybe, just maybe, the advice they give is not the best because they are completely disconnected with the responsibility that involves them actually sharing something with others. But this is something that we're going to talk about later on in this video. So always remember this. It is good to consume self-improvement media, but if you do nothing with it, then you are actually shooting yourself in the foot. Actually, I coined this phenomenon the David Goggins effect, which is what I just explained. Which is funny because David Goggins himself suffered from the David Goggins effect. I listened to one of his videos, I think a year ago, where he was saying that when he used to be fat, because he was fat, he used to watch videos of SEALs, of Navy SEALs on the TV. And it every single time had the same effect. It satisfied him. It didn't really want to make him push forward. So he was stuck in a loop of feeling bad about himself, watching documentaries about badass men, and then going straight back to being a piece of shit and feeling bad about himself. He broke through the David Goggins effect by becoming himself and starting to get shit done. This is also how it is done for you. But the issue is that getting stuck in that cycle of just consuming media is extremely attractive because it is extremely pleasurable and also it takes absolutely no effort. So what you end up doing is you essentially listen to these men, the Joe Rogans, the Jocko Willings, and you end up just living vicariously through them. This is a trap because you end up dreaming your life instead of actually living your dream. So this is my warning to you. No matter how good the advice you receive is, if you never make it on your own and you never apply it, you would have been better off receiving no advice at all. This also goes for this channel. I speak about lifting. If you just listen to what I say and you never apply it and try it for yourself, you might as well watch someone make soup. It would be the exact same difference. But it doesn't stop there. Because even if you do end up applying it, it won't work if the advice was bad to begin with. And this is when we get into the fun part of the video. Now, we're moving now past the metaphysical world of self-improvement and how to actually apply it to yourself. And we start talking about the people that call themselves self-improvement gurus and that present themselves as potentially able to help you with your life. We would naturally think and hope that the most popular self-improvement gurus out there, like the ones in the thumbnail, would only give good advice because, I mean, they have millions of people following them. So this must mean that they are quality. The issue is that this is not how YouTube or any platform works. The problem with this platform and any other internet platform is that it works via algorithms. Algorithms are hype-based, meaning that once someone starts catching the attention of people, the algorithm starts pushing it to more people and it snowballs. It has a snowball effect. You can end up with a complete moron who just lucks out and ends up with a massive following of people who think, okay, based on the number of subscribers of this guy, he must know what he's talking about. So I'm going to shut down my critical thinking skills, or the little I had, and I'm just going to follow him blindly. This is a problem because every single other person within the group that watches this person thinks the exact same thing. So it's essentially if 99 people followed one person and every person of the group thought, okay, I'm following him because he must know where he's going, and he must know where he's going because all the other people are also following him. But everyone thinks the same thing, and the guy has absolutely no fucking idea where he's going. I don't think that's true for the people in the thumbnail. I'm just saying that in the broader theme, it is absolutely correct when it comes to self-improvement gurus, especially the masculinity gurus. I always love when I see a guy who's 17, who never had any experience with women, who is still living with mom and dad, who gives advice to other young men on how to become a man. What do you know? You don't even have your GED. That's a discussion for another day. I have a few names in mind. But for now, let's look at what happens to the people who fall for that. Because if you are a man and you have no discipline, or you have no method, like what I explained previously, you have never attempted in your life, well, you're going to be very quick to swallow whatever is thrown your way, especially by an authority figure, because you've never even tried anything yourself. See, it's like with training. If you have never run a program before and you run one of mine, you are very likely to think that my program is great and that I know everything. Why? You have no previous experience, right? It's like if you had sex with only one woman and you say, well, she's the best lay in the wood. Well, that's the only piece of comparison that you have. So you don't know that. You want to have more experience, and it's the same in the realm of lifting, it's the same in the realm of self-improvement. But sadly, just like with sex, there is what is known as the first-time effect. The first-time effect is especially potent with women who have sex with one guy, it's their first, and they develop an almost obsession with the guy because he was their first. I'm there to tell you that a first means nothing. Firsts in general in life only have value because we associate a symbolical value to the idea that it was the first. But answer me this, was your first piece of chocolate better than the 16th? No, it's the exact same chocolate. What changes is your perception of it. Same with gurus and same with people who give lifting advice. If you discover someone and you know no one before him, you're going to think he's the best and you're going to start becoming emotionally attached to him. This is a mistake. Go see somewhere else. Make more experiences because this is how you're going to build yourself the capacity to see through bullshit and to decipher between people who give good advice and people who give bad advice. But as I said, since the majority of men don't do that, it leads to the aforementioned alpha male routines that I mentioned in the video. And these alpha male routines, as I said, are people who might not necessarily be super competent, who tell you that if you just follow their daily routines, you're going to become an alpha. Well, I reviewed a few of them, and I want to discuss whether or not they hold up. So let's start with the main theme and the very reoccurring theme of morning routines. You'd think that this would be reserved for women, but it's now being spread on men as well. Men are starting to have morning routines. For women, it's mostly a way to make them consume and cake themselves in makeup and creams. For us, it is still a way to get us to consume things, but it's a little bit more pernicious because it plays off of our masculine instincts. Now, I want to make clear that a morning routine is not a bad thing. But the things that I've seen some men follow to become more alpha are absolutely laughable. So I want to explain the reason why I think that most of them are absolute bogus. So first off, and this is going to be a recurring theme, if the routine involves you having to buy something, especially if it's very expensive, it most likely is not very effective. It's just, again, a way to tell you that if you want to become more alpha, you just have to buy this and you're going to be able to get it done. I know that you guys are red-pilled because you follow my channel and I tell you to never buy anything in this realm, but I also know that these items and these products are sold by people who know exactly how to make them appealing to you, and I find myself being tantalized sometimes because I think, oh, well, maybe this is the secret. Maybe this is going to make a massive difference. That's bullshit. There is no such thing as a massive difference. I already told you that. Refer to the start of the video. There are only small changes that amount to big differences. No big changes that creates big differences. That simply does not exist. But since these people want to sell you things, they will do their best to actually make you think you need these things, and they will create a need. And how does that actually occur? How does another human psychologically manipulate you to thinking that you need their product? Well, it's a very sophisticated switcheroo, and it goes as follows. You start as a guru by praising the benefit of a certain action. For example, you wake up and upon waking up, you go and you take the sun, right? Your guru tells you, hey, if you want to be more energetic throughout the day and have more of an ability to get shit done, first thing you do is you go take the sun. You look at the sun. Okay, that seems innocent enough. And you think, well, that's free. It is free and it's actually great advice. But then there is the second blade that comes afterwards. And that blade is the switcheroo. The guy that is telling you that knows that maybe you're too lazy to go out in the morning, or maybe the sun is not that bright where you live. Maybe there's cloud. So what does he say afterwards? He tells you, well, if you cannot take the sun, I have an alternative option for you. You can buy this infrared lamp for $300 and you can just stare at that instead. That is the switcheroo. And many people are none the wiser. They think, well, he gave me a free option, so clearly he's not after my money. Wrong. He knows you. He knows you intimately. He knows you're too lazy to take the free option. Same, for example, when I'm doing, I don't know, like a healthy breakfast in the morning. You cut oranges and you create a meal that has lots of vitamins and minerals to start your day. That's healthy and cheap, but lots of people are too lazy to get that done. So instead, what do? They buy pills. They buy supplements that are supposedly going to replicate the same effects. That is the switcheroo. And actually, it's very relevant nowadays. It's exactly what we saw with Liver King. That's the way Liver King was selling his pills. He sold supplements made off of liver. Liver by itself and organ meat, which by the way, is relatively easy to cook and not unhealthy in moderate doses. So you would think, okay, how is he exactly making money out of this? He's telling me to eat more organ meat. Well, he also knows that many of you don't like the taste and will not actually go through the bother of buying the meat. So instead, he sells you a replacement that is 10 times more expensive, that makes him a ton of money, and that is the switcheroo. That is exactly what the switcheroo is. It does not mean that the benefit started from the practice that is presented, that is free, is a lie. But what comes afterwards is the lie. The lie is the idea that you need to buy something as an alternative replacement. You don't. You absolutely don't. Either you get the free stuff and you get it done, or you just don't do anything. This is important. You could tell me, well, I still want the benefits, so why can't I just buy it? Maybe I have a ton of money and I just want to buy it. Who are you to tell me that it is not a good idea? Who are you to tell me that it is not a good replacement? Well, it's not a good replacement because if we connect it back to what I told you about discipline, you are now committing the number one sin. You are outsourcing your discipline. You are using a product that is supposed to replace an action, meaning that you became passive. You are no longer an actor of your life. You are passive. You're consuming pills instead of making breakfast. You're staring at a red light instead of going outside and looking at the sun. All of that is an issue and a big mistake. And you could tell me, okay, well, why do self-improvement gurus push these products then? Don't they know that it's not connected with the metaphysical aspect and approach of discipline and self-improvement? Well, I'm sure that they do know, but what they know also is that there is no money in selling you free methods. How are they supposed to buy a fifth mention? Instead, they do the switcheroo, knowing for a fact that many of you guys are going to fall for it. These methods play off of your greed, the greed and the fear of missing out that has you want to get those benefits, combined with the laziness that the average person possesses, a laziness that should be replaced by discipline, but that in this case pushes you to want the benefits, but also not want to have to work for it, and therefore you take the easy way out. Same with motivational videos. Again, there are actors and there are spectators in life. You always want to be the actor, but these methods always promote being the spectator. So how do you distinguish between the legitimate means of self-improvement and the ones that are just going to end up costing you something and not actually netting you any benefits? Well, I have a very simple mean. If someone promises you amazing hormonal or neurological benefits for something that only serves to replace a basic action, and they overhype the shit out of the benefits, you can bet that they are only sensationalizing the morning routine process on purpose in order to excite your desire. In which case, you should absolutely dodge them because, as I said, if you purchase these products, it will produce in the brain a sensation very similar to the action of actually achieving these small morning milestones, which is actually the reason why you should do these milestones in the first place. I know that it sounds counterintuitive, but to me, the reason why you want to wake up early, for example, is not just to be able to be awake at 6. It's to be able to develop the discipline to tell yourself, okay, I have decided I will be awake at 6, and so I will be awake at 6. Same for a breakfast. Okay, eating a balanced breakfast is good in the morning. What's even better is the ability to tell yourself you're going to do it, then doing it. This is the process and the metaphysical mechanisms of discipline that I think are much more important. If you just buy the product, you are getting, in a sense, the envelope, but without the substance, because you are not actually getting it done. We're going to get back to this idea because it is absolutely key in terms of self-improvement, and it makes you realize who is actually in this thing to help you and the people who are only in this to actually get money from you. But to connect with this, I think that it's a similar process with people who buy training programs, which is the reason why I make mine free. I think that the action of buying training programs, in a sense, satisfies many people. And this is why you meet people who have bought 6, 7 training programs, even though many are free and available out there. Why? Well, because it's the action of purchasing the product that they like, because it makes them feel like they're investing in fitness. Same if you buy a replacement for a morning routine action. If the action becomes an item, the item might very well become something that you never use. But because you are satisfied from buying the action, it makes you the item, it makes you think that you are investing resources into your development, which is bullshit. The only thing that must be actually put into and actually invested into self-improvement is time and energy. Money has never been needed, and it's the same for lifting. Money is non-important. If you want it bad enough, you will get it done, and it is as simple as that. And when it comes to overhyping products, I want you to keep an eye out for people who do what I call listings and people who use science to explain why their products are so good. The guy that I put in the thumbnail, whose name I always forget, Andrew Huberman, is a big proponent of that method. He will spend 5 fucking minutes explaining to you exactly why when the sun hits your eye, it's so good for the brain. Something that could be summed up in 2 sentences that you don't even need to know to understand why it's good. And then he'll finish that by saying, and you can buy this product that does the same thing. Again, you could say, well, he gives me the free method, but I've already explained it to you. You might follow the free method, but the average person absolutely will not. So be careful with the science-based products. And as I said, be careful with the listing. Just recently, I saw a guy advertising a powder, I think it was for magnesium. He made a list long like the Bible to explain to you why magnesium was great for you. At some point, it's like, okay, this is the equivalent of like these Chinese herborists that I sometimes go to when I go to Chinese markets, and they'll sit there for 15 minutes explaining to you why this herb in particular is going to cure your cancer. All of that is nonsense. It's called overhyping. But when it comes to the old Chinese guy, he actually believes that shit. The guy who sells you this doesn't believe it. He just knows that the longer he rambles on, the higher the chance of you actually seeing something on the list that you think you can benefit from, which boosts the potential of you actually buying the product. And in both cases, it's dangerous because it's a form of hypnosis. Like with Huberman, who speaks about scientific things that you understand nothing about for 5 minutes, then ends with a sales pitch. Or the guy who is going to bore you to death with a list of benefits, then tells you to purchase the product. In both cases, they're trying to put you to sleep. In a sense, it's a way to shut your brain down so you just accept blindly what they have to say. It loops back to what I said about authority figures. Always be wary of authority figures. Always question authority, because if someone has authority on you, they can do whatever they want with you because you have stopped questioning the impact of their information or advice on your own body and on your own brain. And that is absolutely unacceptable. So regardless of the advice you receive, Seek to understand it first and then move on. Because if you don't actually understand it, you just become a puppet. And this is my issue with self-improvement in reality. It should have stayed something spiritual to benefit the most people for the greater good, quote unquote, but instead it has only turned into something that gurus use to excite your consumerism for their own benefit, of course. And it doesn't necessarily make them wrong or dangerous, because you can always resist these methods, but I also do think that it explains why many people are starting to call out self-improvement methods nowadays. So now we lost on both fronts, right? Not only is self-improvement bad for the people that want to follow it because it doesn't preach the right methods, but on top of that, many people are going to be turned off from the practice in the first place because it has been polluted. So now self-improvement as a whole and as a practice dies, and I am simply not okay with that. So always remember, and this is the key, this is the part that I think is the most important, right? This explains exactly why you always want the action and not the item. The action of fulfilling the habit is as important as the content of the action itself. This is the example I gave you about breakfast. Eating breakfast is not enough, you also have to make it yourself. And this connects to another self-improvement theme that is extremely popular with these types that I never see linked with what I just said. The dopamine detox, where you're supposed to avoid actions that give you immediate pleasure, instantaneous gratification, because it's bad for you. I agree with that 100%, but then these very same types are going to sell you a replacement for an action, and that replacement does the exact same thing. It gives you gratification without you having to actually put in the effort that the action would have required. So you get the reward without actually having to suffer through it. That is also a way to fry your dopamine receptors, quote unquote, which beyond the scientific terms just means that you're becoming a brat. You are getting everything that you want without putting any effort. This is also why I think that self-improvement, first and foremost, must be severe. It must never allow people to take the shortcut, because the shortcut is not self-improvement. It's just a way to feel better about yourself. And I'm starting to see more and more services on YouTube that are being shielded and pushed by people who do sponsors, who essentially amount to someone delivering food directly at your door. And this is also touted in a sense as a tool of self-improvement, where people tell you, well, if someone makes your food, now you have nutritious food, so you can focus entirely on your discipline or on your ability to train. Okay, that sounds nice and all, but by doing this very action of getting the food delivered to you, you are falling for the same problems and patterns that I just described. It is debilitating in a sense because, yes, you are getting a lot of the benefits from the food. It's like, yeah, you bought an infrared light. Okay, you get the benefits from the infrared light. But what you don't get is, you don't get the benefits from actually having done the action. Because the benefits of eating food is not just the nutrition that it gives you. It's also the fact that you purchased the food and that you made the food yourself. So if someone delivers it to your door, what happens? Well, the ownership of having made the food is transferred from you to the company. And that is something that must be avoided. As I said, it is absolutely important that you get both the content of the action and the action of doing the action, the two, not one and not the other. It actually, and I would argue, is better to do the action and to not get the reward. It's better to try to make your own food and to fuck it up and eat garbage food rather than dodging the action and then getting delicious food delivered to your door. That is ownership, and that is an absolutely important message to receive. Any methods that robs you of your personal responsibility must be avoided. Why do people not avoid it? Because personal responsibility also means that you can fail, you can fuck up. But guess what? If you always try to avoid means and methods that have you fuck up, you will constantly stay a spectator. You know who never fucks up? People who never try. The amount of small-dicked bitches that sit around and look at people who get things done, especially in the fitness sphere, and who just criticize with a smile on their face, too many to count. Why are these people doing that? Because it's comfortable, because they're not actually risking anything, but they don't actually get anything done either. They just judge. It's, in a sense, the same thing here. You want to retain your personal responsibility with everything that you have. And I know that for many people, The counter-argument to it would be to say that these methods offered, the paid methods offered, are more time efficient. And you would be correct, they are. But the question I have for you is, did you get in self-improvement to speedrun your life? Do you think that discipline is something that can be achieved in 24 hours? Last I checked, the goal was to become better regardless of the timeline. And the problem with these time-efficient methods is that they rob you of the very action that would have built discipline. So they are just a trap. They are simply a trap. And it's a trap that everyone who tries to take shortcuts is going to fall in times and times again. It's the same for supplements in the fitness sphere. Who buys all of these bullshit supplements, the testosterone, the ecdysterone that are supposed to put 5 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle on your frame? People who have decided that they don't want to do the action and they would rather buy the item. Does the item do anything? Maybe. It doesn't fucking matter. What matters is that it takes away your responsibility because now you're not responsible for your reward anymore. And on top of that, it also takes away from the meaning of the action, which you never want to see happen. Always dodge that again, like the plague, because all of these things are the enemies of discipline. And this is proven by this hypothetical scenario. Let's look at the food delivery service once more. What if one day you stop being able to afford the service or it shuts down? What is left for you? The answer to that question is nothing. Nothing is left. Why? Because the service was fulfilling the process that would have built discipline in the first place. But you outsourced the process. You let someone else do it for you. And now that you're not using the service anymore, you have nothing left. This is why any self-improvement gurus that sells you replacement methods should be ashamed of themselves. They do that because it makes them money. They know for a fact that it's going to leave you empty at the end, but they don't give a fuck. You should give a fuck. You should learn how to cook. You should learn how to shop for food because these are forever skills. These are skills that you will develop to be able to feed yourself, but that you will also keep. Once the meal is done, what is left? It's the skills that you developed. And this is the important part of self-improvement. What is done once you're done eating McDonald's? What is there? Nothing. Shame, guilt. You didn't make the burger, you just ate the burger. There is absolutely no pride in that. And there is also absolutely no ownership in that. Always favor things that foster discipline. And discipline, as I said, is a number of actions stringed together. And this is the issue in this case. Now, there's also the problem of money. You could tell me, well, it's too expensive for me regardless, and you would be right. Cooking your food is always much cheaper than having it delivered. But this is also where we touch into something else that sort of pisses me off a bit with these self-improvement gurus, is that they speak from a place of privilege, quote unquote, meaning that the advice they give might not be the most relevant to you because a guy like Joe Rogan most likely has a chef that makes his food for him. Why? Because it's relevant to him. He has so much money that he has plenty of opportunities to spend it. So he's most likely going to hire a chef because his time is money. But for you, that's not the case. You would most likely be better off getting the skills from cooking, and on top of that, saving the money that actually going through the process of cooking would save you. And self-improvement gurus tend to forget that. They tend to forget that not everyone is rich like them, which sometimes tends to make them a bit caricatural. They tend to become caricatures of themselves, essentially, which is fine. I mean, we all become caricatures of ourselves at some point. It's called the frienderization, especially if you're on the internet and you're a celebrity like myself, of course. But I think that it becomes a problem when the people that consume the information that you give fail to realize that. They fail to realize that you have been caught into your own meme. And when that happens, these people are very likely to follow advice that is simply not suitable for them at all. So they're going to look at someone who's a billionaire and who's going to tell them how they live their life, and they're just going to copy them blindly thinking, oh, if I do the exact same thing, then I'm going to become like them. And my favorite example of that is the time at which one wakes up. Every single one of these guys wakes up at ungodly hours, like 4 a.m., 5:30 a.m. I even saw a guy wake up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this? The only reason I can give is that these people are engaged in a dick measuring contest. They want to see who can wake up the earlier. And it's stupid. I hope you understand that it's stupid. But it's so pervasive nowadays in alpha male circles that you see people who get no benefits in waking up early because it's not aligned with their lifestyle, but they do it regardless. If you wake up at 5 and you get nothing done until 10, and I wake up at 10, you're not better than me. I'm going to get more done than you. And then when you're going to go to bed, I'm going to spend 5 more hours being productive. So all of that is really something that must be pushed aside. And when you see the type of people that push that type of nonsense, like The Rock, like Mark Wahlberg, I mean, all of this is fairly idiotic. But it plays off of strings that men are very sensitive to. You know, we like to be competitive and we like to compare ourselves to others and see who's the toughest. And apparently waking up early makes you tough, so people just copy that. This is also something that must be avoided. Don't do things just because another guy who you see as alpha is doing that. Nothing can be more better than this. But these people are not going to tell you that, because if they did, you would actually have to face the truth. And the truth is that many of them got in the position they're in, not because of their routines, not because of their discipline, but because of luck. And there's nothing wrong with that. The wood is made of luck. Luck is an important part of life. I would even go as far as to say that luck is a skill. It's just a skill that one cannot develop. It's random. But it's idiotic then for someone to look at them and think, okay, they got in this position through this string of actions, so if I replicate the string of action, I'm going to be in their position. No, it's not going to work like this. And if anything, the proof is that many self-improvement gurus got into that position by preaching self-improvement. So they became rich by telling other men how to become rich, and you take advice from him, but he wasn't rich before he gave the advice. So what does it say exactly? Well, most likely that you're looking at a pyramid scheme. You're looking at someone who is selling you methods and means to get to his position, when in reality, the things that he's selling is the reason why he's in this position. So is this going to actually correlate to you getting better or becoming more alpha or having a higher social status? I doubt it. And this is why you have a glass ceiling of self-improvement that many people fail to break because they are not going about it the right way. And I think that the right way, again, as I said, is disconnected from the person that gives you the advice. Good advice is good advice, regardless of the person that gives it to you. And this is true for the theme that I just discussed, for waking up early. Waking up early isn't guaranteed to make you successful. It depends entirely on your context and biological predispositions. This guy woke up at 4 because he starts his job at 5. It makes sense for him. It's conducive to his success. Wake up at the time of the day that is the most conducive to your success. It's the same for the gym. People who say, well, train in the morning because it makes you more productive. Wrong. I cannot train in the morning. I'm a zombie in the morning. I'm the most productive at night when these people are in bed. Are they going to feel bad that you're still awake when they're actually sleeping? No, they don't give a fuck, because they have accepted the idea that waking up early is better. Fuck their morality and fuck what they think. Actually follow the routine that is the best suited for you. If you are a night owl, wake up later and get your work done later in the day. Keep in mind that this idea that the early bird gets the worm is mostly a fruit of a post-industrial revolution society that hyper-focuses on labor productivity and therefore wants the maximum amount of people to be awake during the time of the day when most businesses are open. It starts and ends there. It's all about profit. Society wants you awake when the most people are there to be able to make the maximum amount of money. And people who replicate that type of pattern, the people that end up becoming self-improvement gurus, just mimic this. They mimic the way society functions, and they see the patterns in society that are the most correlated with normalcy and not competitiveness or the ability to actually be successful. But again, normalcy, they see what is normal and they just replicate that. And usually what they do is they double down. So if waking up at 7 is normal, they say, well, wake up at 6. That extra hour is going to make all of the difference. Wrong. It won't, because you're going to have to make up for it at the end of the day, unless you sleep less, which is also advice I've heard, people saying, well, if you sleep 1 less hour, you're going to be more productive and you're going to have a leg up on the competition. Yeah, but you'll also be more tired, so you'll be less productive for all of these hours you spend alive and working. I mean, it's a mistake I make all the time, guys. I spend sometimes 3-4 hours of my night making videos for you guys. I always regret it. I do it because I like making videos for you, but it's never conducive to me being able to be productive. So always bring it back to you. Self-improvement is, surprise, surprise, about the self. It doesn't matter what these guys say. If it doesn't align with what you need and what benefits the self, then it's simply not needed. And the last thing we want is for you to just become another drone, another cog of the machine, another sheep of society that wakes up at this time because it's needed. Look, if you have a job like I have, I get it, you have to wake up, but if it's not actually aligned with your job, don't sabotage your sleep and your recovery just for the sake of being more alpha and following an alpha male routine. It is simply idiotic. And on top of that, even from a biological standpoint, it makes absolutely no sense. Keep in mind that this rhythm, this routine that we have of waking up at this time and going to bed at this time, and the 7 to 5, the 9 to 5 workload is not natural. It's again aligned with a capitalistic society that is attempting to make as much money as possible. It has never aligned with the way our circadian rhythms work, because if this were the case, we would work much less during winter. Our ancestors used to work a ton during summer and during fall and spring, and then during winter they would mostly rest. They would work 2-3 hours a day. Why? Well, because it's what makes the most sense. It's way too cold and it's way too dark outside, so you reduce the amount of energy you expend, and this aligns with your natural circadian rhythm. We don't do that anymore. It's night. How many hours a day where I live? I think we have 4 hours. Today there was 0 hours, okay? It was dark all throughout the day. I still woke up at 7 and I still worked until 6 p.m. Is that natural? No, it's not what I wanted to do. It's what I do because I live in this society and I have bills to pay. Simple as that. But when I see self-improvement gurus that try to present this as normal and as the way everyone must be, and to be an alpha, you have to do this on steroids and you have to work even more. Nonsense. This is just an attempt to turn you into a machine. That's not what self-improvement is, unless your goal is to become a machine, which acceptable if that's what you want. But I think that what you deep down really want is to become yourself, okay? It's to become the best version of yourself. And the best version of yourself is certainly not a clone of someone else. That is my point. But this idea of clones and of mimicking others and their behaviors, as I said, is quite present in self-improvement because it's mostly a game of copycats. It's seeing this guy who's successful and thinking, okay, if I just do exactly what he does, I'm going to be good, I'm going to be successful. So we end up modeling our idea of success, our very idea of success, after people that society deems successful. And that also, I think, is fairly pathetic because you have never stopped for a second and asked yourself, okay, what do I want in life? And what are the things that I think, if I achieve, will make me successful in this life? What would make me happy? Many humans have never done that, which is why you have so many men who chase cars and pretty girls. And if you could stop them for a second and spend some time with them, you would realize that the reason why they want that is not because they had a deep introspection to try and understand what they want out of this life. It's just that they saw that that's what the media tells them to like. So they were just like, okay, I guess I'll just follow that. It's sad, but it also is at the heart of the reason why self-improvement has failed. Self-improvement towards where? Self-improvement is a journey, guys. You need to know where you want to go. If you just start blindly, or even worse, if you follow an influencer, what are the chances you're going to end up in a place that actually is suited to your happiness? The answer is 0, so don't make that mistake. Before you even embark on the journey, ask yourself, hey, what am I expecting to get from this journey? And once you know that, you'll know what to do and what path to actually travel and what path to also actually avoid. Paths to avoid include, as I said, all of the things that society tells you make you successful, because most of the time, it's not for you, it's for them. This guru is going to tell you that chasing money is important. Why? Because he has a course on how to make money with Bitcoins. So in a sense, as I said, it's a pyramid scheme. He's trying to make you chase money because he chases money, and you doing the same thing is going to encourage you to buy his products. And we can extrapolate that to society as well. Why does society want us to wake up at a certain time? Why does society want us to chase money? Well, it's because the more money you make, the more taxes the government can take from you, the more things you consume, so the more wealth and capital you create. You essentially just become, as I said, a cog of the machine. That's self-improvement. And if you think this is communist speech, I mean, in a sense, you're right, or Marxist, I guess. I've yet to actually read any Marxist literature, so I don't know how on point I am. But it's, to me, immediately evident that this is not the right path for humans. And yet this is the path that self-improvement has taken. Many people self-improve to become richer. And if that's what you want deep down, it's fine. But I'm certain that most of you guys actually don't want that. I don't know why I'm starting to speak like this. It is below 0 in the garage, and I'm starting to freeze to death. So we're going to wrap up this video, but as I said, be careful of the very people who start to promote these ideas, those people who embody success, because most of the time, as I said, they just represent what society deems successful, aka people who are able to produce capital and sell products. And these are the ones that make it, by the way. Most self-improvement gurus are people that make the most money for the enterprise or the companies that back this person. And this only makes sense. The more money you have, the more visibility you have, the more access to the media you have. So the gurus that are at the top are the ones who chase money the most. This correlates to what I said about popularity not being correlated with competence. The guys who are the loudest and who have the biggest platforms are not necessarily the ones who give the best advice. They're the ones who give the advice conducive to them being able to make money, which increases their influence. Meaning also that some of the best advice out there by people who are non-consumerists is going to be buried because these people have no voices, these people have no visibility whatsoever. So always keep in mind the system in which these people evolve, because most of the time it gives you a good idea of the type of advice they're going to give you. And as I said, since the gurus that make it to the top are the ones who manage to sell the most, it also means that for the most part, the methods that they are going to push are the ones that I described as toxic previously. They're the ones that are going to take away your responsibility. But since the average male is always going to take the path of least resistance, you also understand that it would make sense that the elite and the top of self-improvement gurus would be the type that attempt to make you feel good, but not necessarily become good. And this makes a lot of sense when you consider that for a guru to keep making money, they have to keep the men that listen to them in a state of perpetual dependence on them. So the best thing to actually achieve that state is to make sure that you never actually give the person a mean where they can by themselves get to a level where they develop discipline, because that would free them. Instead, you give them means that are going to give them an instantaneous gratification, but don't produce any deep changes within them. That way they keep coming back for more. It's what I said previously. Self-improvement should be free, because the actual legitimate means of self-improvement cannot be bought, they cannot be purchased, because you become self-sufficient. But since this makes no money, there's no money to be made in this, self-improvement has naturally started to shift towards things that make money, which also correlate with methods that simply don't work. But since it is the law of the market, it is what we have ended up with. And as I said, taking advice from a billionaire is unlikely to make you one. All of that is done in an effort to trigger your desire, which is essentially going to push you towards consuming more, which reinforces their status, which makes it so that more men are exposed to their message, etc., etc. It is, for them, a very virtuous circle. And for you, it is going to be a vicious circle, because the men that you follow are going to have principles that are entirely mismatched to their context and needs, to your context and needs, and are not going to be correlated with your success, because the likelihood of you becoming that guy you copy is zero. That is sort of the point. If it actually worked, there would be millions of people who have millions themselves and who are billionaires themselves, and who become self-improvement gurus. But this is not what we are seeing. What we're seeing is we're seeing a labor class of idiots who follow self-improvement gurus and pay them, then a middle class of people who quote-unquote made it, and then a top 1% class of the gurus who make money from the people at the bottom. And the people at the middle are the most vicious of the bunch, because they convince the people at the bottom that the mobility, the class mobility or the wealth mobility is possible, even though they themselves are stuck by this glass ceiling. So as a rule of thumb, it is therefore a good idea to avoid any type of paid content like alpha male seminars, self-help books, or magical alpha supplements. Instead, focus on the effortful methods. Because these methods are the ones, as I said, that are going to connect with your ability to develop discipline through action instead of outsourcing your responsibility. And cold showers are actually a good example of that. They are universally hated by weak men for a reason. It's because they're hard and they're uncomfortable. But they're also not that promoted by self-improvement gurus, because you can't sell a cold shower. So this is the portion of free content and free advice that you should latch on. right? I'm not saying to not listen to the guys in the thumbnail or whatever guru you like to listen to for self-improvement, but always put in action the things that they preach. And before that, always make sure that the things that they preach are going to be correlated with your happiness and your own development. And cold showers, as I said, in a sense represent that symbolically because they cost you nothing. You don't need to understand how they work for them to work. And even if they did nothing, the fact that they push your limits is enough to make them a valuable tool. So anytime you see a self-improvement method, bring it back to the cold shower and think, okay, how correlated in terms of nature is it to a cold shower? How many traits does it share with a cold shower? The more traits, the better the method. The less traits, the worse the method. Actually try this, it actually works. So apply the same mindset to everything else. Most of self-improvement is basic wisdom. This is immediately true whenever you listen to these guys. It's basic stuff, dudes. Basic stuff that is packaged with a ton of science and complicated terms to make you think that it's smarter than it actually is. It's not. Improving is simple. It simply isn't easy. This is going to allow you to step by step start to re-ingrain these habits that you forgot about into your life slowly. The goal isn't to do as many as possible, but to never let go of one once you've developed it. And this, if you have been stuck in that cycle of self-improvement, should speak to you right now. How many times have you developed a good positive habit or ditched a bad habit only for it to come back or for the good habit to die? You told yourself you would stop jerking off. 3 weeks later, you relapse, you jerk off again. Was the issue the fact that you jerked off in the first place? No. It was the fact that when you decided to stop, you couldn't stick to it. That is the issue. That is the actual essence of the action and the problem. We don't really give a fuck if you jerk off or not. It's the fact that you're not even able to control your own body. That is absolutely the problem. So once you have a good habit, you hold on to it. And once you have ditched a bad habit, it must never come back in your life, ever. Because keep in mind again that discipline is built through this string of actions. So if the string is constantly broken, what happens? You never reach discipline. You never actually reach discipline. And oftentimes it's because you followed methods that you never owned in the first place. 1, again, because you did not actually achieve them through action. 2, because even before any achievement could take place, you never stopped to think if this was a good thing for you or if it actually made sense. This, as I said, is the issue when you outsource discipline, both physically in the action and mentally in the decision. Don't let someone or something be the reason why you get things done. Don't depend on an idol to model yourself after. Don't depend on stimulants to fuel your passion. Discipline is an internal force that can get hijacked and replaced by other internal forces, but that is best built through external actions that you are the sole owner of. Anyone that tells you otherwise and that they tell you they can sell you discipline are lying. They are trying to replace the internal force by an exterior item that is, as I said, going to replace it, meaning that it's going to take the spot where the action should have occurred, where the internal force should have developed itself, which, as a natural reaction, is going to prevent you from developing discipline. This is the key to positive and healthy self-improvement. And once you have understood this, once you have understood the method of self-improvement and the things that must occur and the nature of the things that must occur for the metaphysics of discipline to actually take place properly, then you are good. Then you can consume self-improvement if you want, because you are going to be immune to its toxic nature. And I think that with this video, you have every single key that you need to be able to become a better man the better way. I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.